Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marco D'Angelo, President and CEO of the Canadian Urban Transit Association, and I'm pleased to be releasing our comprehensive transit and housing report today. And so we've been working on that over the last number of months in partnership with David Cooper from Leading Mobility, and he'll be here to answer questions at the end that are of a technical nature. And so we thank him for being here. And just to look back over the last few months, we held meetings in every region in Canada, from Victoria to Halifax, gaining insight and input from colleagues from across the urban mobility space, in Vancouver to Halifax. And so we were very happy to have over 200 people participate in those roundtables across Canada, including municipal planning agencies, transit systems, development, and academia. They provided essential feedback on our policy recommendations throughout the project. We also set up an expert advisory board, which also provided guidance and insights. And so they helped us to draft the 17 recommendations that we're pleased to include in the report that we're releasing today. Furthermore, we did receive some input as well from CMHC, as well as Infrastructure Canada, and we thank them for that. And so together we explored how transit and housing policies can work together to improve Canadians' daily lives. Because we know that our cities are at a crossroads, and the choices we make now will be there for years to come and will help to shape future generations. Nous avons amorcé cette étude en faisant le constat suivant. Le transport et le logement occupent les deux plus grands budgets des familles canadiennes. Avec le climat économique actuel, la hausse du coût de la vie, les problèmes de main-d'œuvre, les objectifs d'immigration et la croissance prévue de la population, la crise du logement actuel doit être gérée maintenant et rapidement. Et le transport collectif fait partie de la solution. As I said, households and their two biggest expenditures are housing and transportation. So the rising prices of these essentials are impacting Canadians' ability to afford basic expenses, particularly in the aftermath of the pandemic. Increased interest rates are only exacerbating that problem. There is an affordability crisis in Canada. If people cannot afford to live near transit, transit agencies will struggle to regain ridership and build and welcome new riders. So simply put, that is not sustainable. So many Canadians are choosing to move further away from employment centres in search of more affordable housing, leading to longer commutes and increased transit operating costs for our systems. And our communities and our environment both are not being well served if these targets are not met. We face a climate crisis, and we know that transportation accounts for 25% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. And we know public transit is one of the best solutions to address that. The housing crisis is a pressing issue. So right now in Canada, we're losing more affordable units than we're building. And according to CMHC projections, Canada needs about 3.5 million additional housing units by 2030 to restore affordability. This is accommodating roughly 500,000 new Canadians that are arriving each year. So with the need to house and connect our growing population, the opportunity to integrate transit and housing policies has never been more apparent. Historically, the two have been planned separately, resulting in new housing developments with little to no transit service or new transit projects without the necessary residential density to increase ridership, to really take advantage of those investments that are occurring in major projects across Canada. We need to rethink our approach today to ensure a brighter tomorrow for all Canadians. Cette approche des coûts entraîne des déplacements plus longs, une augmentation des coûts d'exploitation du transport collectif et constitue un obstacle au progrès vers les autres objectifs des politiques publiques. Le logement et le transport sont étroitement liés. Leurs solutions doivent l'être également. Aujourd'hui, je vous présente le point culminant de cette vaste collaboration de l'ACTU avec des municipalités, le gouvernement provincial, des promoteurs, des groupes communautaires, des universitaires et le gouvernement fédéral. So we had several working principles in mind when the research began. These were to increase ridership, maximize capital investment, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, consider location efficiency in planning for housing and transit, and consider timely and unique factors. So our report is aptly named Housing is on the Line, and we present 5 key pillars of action. They are our guiding principles as we move forward to build transit and build housing in the coming years. So first, we must activate land. There's a wealth of underutilized land surrounding transit stations that can be harnessed to deliver more transit-oriented housing. By unlocking the potential of this land, we can provide affordable housing options while maximizing our existing transit infrastructure and grow ridership. So this includes making it easier for municipalities to acquire land around transit stations, addressing speculation near transit stations, and prioritizing intensification in existing transit-accessible areas. Secondly, we're advocating for evolving the mandate of transit authorities. Transit agencies should actively encourage housing development on transit property, including above transit stations and by park and ride lots. This approach is not just a means of maximizing transit investment, but it also provides opportunities for affordable housing. So ensuring inclusivity is the third vital aspect of our endeavor. Transit agencies should seize the chance to expand their customer base, especially among new Canadians and those with modest incomes. Public transit offers a reliable and affordable transportation option that can significantly assist all groups. So by promoting inclusivity further, government should incentivize developers to prioritize purpose-built rentals and non-market housing in transit-accessible areas. Time is of the essence, of course, and that's our 4th pillar. Streamlining approval processes comes into play. Canadians of all stripes can agree that it takes far too long for new housing and new transit to get built. Delays are costly and constrain our economic and social progress. Coordinated rezoning can lead to cost savings for new rapid transit projects, and municipalities should accelerate those timelines for reviewing applications when defined inside of transit-oriented development areas. Finally, maximizing investments is a key to ensuring the success of these recommendations. Governments can achieve multiple policy outcomes with the same investment. So funding for public transit should prioritize those that stimulate housing development, integrate with active transportation networks, and complete communities. The report looks at novel concepts as well, such as location-efficient mortgages, to offer home purchases that are near transit facilities and making sure that those are more accessible to more Canadians. In the initial stages, ridership is taking time to return to expected levels, so there's a need for government to fund transit operating costs that are associated with new capital projects in the future. The effective use of resources is essential to achieving our goals. So we know the Permanent Transit Fund, a new program slated to begin in 2026, represents a significant source of support for transit by offering stability and predictability to transit funding and enabling long-term planning and cost-effective investments in transit infrastructure. CUTA's report also provides a roadmap for the provinces and municipalities to boost housing stock to ensure we're aligning between public transit and housing needs. Embracing TOD, transit-oriented development, maximizes development potential at transit stations and employs real estate strategies for critical transit sites and eliminating parking minimums in TOD areas. Le rapport de l'ACTU s'appuie sur 5 piliers et offre 17 recommandations. Premièrement, nous devons activer les terrains en facilitant leurs acquisitions pour aménagement axé sur le transport collectif et s'attaquer à la spéculation. Et prioriser l'intensification des zones où le transport collectif est accessible. Deuxièmement, le mandat des agences de transport doit évoluer pour pouvoir développer les terrains du transport collectif, bâtir des logements à côté des parcs bus. Troisièmement, nous devons garantir l'inclusion. Quatrièmement, rationalisation les processus de l'approbation. Donnons-nous les leviers pour raisonner proactivement, pour réformer les mécanismes d'appel, pour lutter contre le pas dans ma cour. Finalement, on doit maximiser les investissements. La collaboration régionale doit être encouragée et le fonds alloué selon la performance. So we understand that it takes more than recommendations to create change. It requires concrete, collaborative efforts from all levels of government and our partners. So our report is not just a checklist, it's rather a call to action to create cities where everyone can find a home and where every journey is convenient and where quality of life is second to none. So as we release this report to you, the public today, and our industry partners, we look forward to the discussions that will ensue. And so we invite your input, your ideas, and your collaboration. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, we'll start with question in the room. It's just a reminder for people joining us online. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function, and we'll go to a question from the room.
Yeah, that's great. My name is Elise Skura. I'm from CBC Ottawa. I'm just wondering, there's some pretty ambitious goals, I guess, here, and one of them is about building up above transit stations, affordable housing. I wondered what kinds of challenges you found that there might be during your research for this.
Yes, there are a number of challenges, but also a number of opportunities in activating land around where transit projects are being built. And so our recommendations today talk about activating that land, looking at ways to reduce red tape in the approvals process, and evolving the mandate of transit authorities. So currently in Ontario, as one example, is that land that's expropriated to help build transit, but not having transit on it or next to transit in Ontario, to expropriate that land would need to return to the purpose that it was serving before. And so that's one of our recommendations in short, and that's to make sure that land is more available to build more transit and also to build more dense housing in and around transit stations. So we're leveraging those investments by the federal government for capital.
So it seems like this would require significant amounts of funding, and I wondered where you would see the funding coming from.
So there's a number of ways that transit projects are being funded. I mentioned the Permanent Transit Fund, which is coming online in 2026. There's also, provinces are spending record amounts in capital, especially Ontario and Quebec and British Columbia and Alberta as well. So in those provinces, they're putting money up front to say that connecting our communities is a top priority. And we're saying also that we welcome that, but then that housing and planning for housing in and around transit stations will unlock the potential of Canada's transit systems to move commuters around their communities sooner and cheaper and faster.
A lot of the policies seem to be around new transit stations that are being built further down the line. What are your suggestions for getting housing built next to places where there's already been this speculation and the land prices are already so high?
Okay, on that, I'll answer and also ask David Cooper from Leading Mobility to provide some additional insights on that question in terms of building transit and looking at speculation. And so we're asking for one of our policy objectives is to eliminate the HST on new affordable housing. And so we feel that will help to reduce costs for those that are moving in, whether they're owning or renting. And so we're very pleased to say that and to ensure that folks are living in those homes. And so cities across the country are taking different measures, like making sure that units aren't vacant or raising taxes on vacant units. And so all of this, we hope, will reduce the effect of speculation in the housing market. So I'll turn it over to David to provide some additional work that he was doing during our research period. David. Thank you.
So in terms of existing stations, we have a lot of land around our transit station areas, particularly park and ride lots that we don't have the utility servicing in, and that's where we need some funding support to activate those lands to build transit. To build housing. We already have a lot of transit-rich areas. There's examples of that here in Ottawa. We have examples of that in Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, many other cities. For new builds, you had a question about overbuild. So one of the things, overbuild's very complicated. You need to have a third-party developer integrate with a piece of public infrastructure. So if you were to incentivize that for funding, or if you were to incentivize that through development approvals or things like that, that's a way to move that forward. But the key piece of this is that we want to catalyze and activate the lands that we have now, but also incentivize the opportunity to build those housing units with the transit when it's being built at the same time.
One last question, which is that we already have a housing crisis, and many experts suggest that the big transit authorities in Canada could be in something akin to a death spiral. It sounds really scary. Is it too late to make these big changes?
So there's a lot of ridership recovery that is occurring in cities across Canada, and when you look at housing and transit, housing is a bit of a long play. We have the opportunity to build sustained ridership growth through housing opportunities. We have land. One of the things that you want to have to reduce your development costs is the cost of land, and we have a lot of transit available land that is actually in the stewards of transit agencies and municipalities. So when you look at the longer term growth of ridership and the sustainment and sustainability of it, housing is a huge part of that conversation.
Yes, and we have to ensure that ridership is able to grow with investments in capital projects by ensuring that we have affordable options for people, whether it's renting or owning near transit lands. For example, in the city of Brampton, ridership is already 30% above pre-pandemic levels. And so they require operating support to help to serve not only the existing areas of Brampton, but we know that'll be one of the fastest growing cities over the next decade, and looking at other cities around Canada that are in a similar situation. By increasing our population by 500,000 residents each year, it's critical that we make these investments in housing and transit in tandem together, because transit and housing go hand in hand, and so that's what we found and issued 17 recommendations to all levels of government to say, here's how you can help and how transit can help us to meet our housing targets over the next 10 years, our climate targets over the next 10 years, and make sure that we're addressing inflation and affordability for families. Transit is the answer.
All right, just a reminder for the people joining us online, if you do have a question, please use the raise hand function. Ceci est un rappel pour les gens en ligne. Si vous avez une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée.
In terms of the federal funding and the provincial funding that you guys are looking at, the upcoming funding that's already been announced and any operational funding, how much is it going to take to make sure that we can make this happen?
Well, I think provinces are looking at funding transit in a bunch of different ways, and we're very happy to work with our partners in all levels of government. Just last week, for example, the Quebec government is going to address the deficits at Quebec's transit systems by providing 20% funding to cover the operating deficits over the next 5 years. It's a good start. Certainly other provinces should look at that, and we'll be continuing to work with all provinces to ensure that our cities are not running operational deficits, that they aren't needing to reduce service, to ensure that we can accelerate ridership at the same time as building housing.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Merci. Thank you.